welcome back everyone. A pleasant good evening. Welcome to ZIZ's HealthWise. This is the second installation of our new season, and this evening we're just going to be continuing the conversation from last week Monday when we were talking about the health priorities in St. Kitts and Nevis. I am your host, Clilia Davis, and I'm ably joined by Doctors Joeann Davis and also Dr. Monique Lescott. So this evening we are going to go on and explain a lot more things more in depth about health priorities in St. Kitts, determinants of health. We're going to recap some of the things that we did last week, and you're going to want to stick and stay for this one because it's going to be really exciting. So after this commercial break, we'll get started.
Our world is filled with rhythm. Rhythm that's unapologetic, infectious, timeless. Rhythm is commitment in action. It's how we show up for each other with unrelenting support that goes the distance. Rhythm lives in the tiny beats of our most intimate moments and the seismic roars of our biggest achievements. Rhythm is resilience in motion. So even when things go out of sync, we do what it takes to bring the rhythm back. At Flow, we understand your rhythm because we live it. That's why we're dedicated to building a network as resilient as you, with a team of familiar faces working every day to keep you on beat. You're at the heart of everything we do, and our commitment is to keep your rhythm flowing, no matter what.
Smart Electronics, your one-stop shop for all your electronic needs. Unlock cell phones, tablets, laptop computers, Bluetooth speakers, TVs, mobile accessories, memory cards, USB drives. We carry all major brands. Now you don't have to go anywhere anymore. Everything's available under one roof. Mort Electronics at Port Sante opposite the food court. Telephone 466-4271. Visit our website at dutyfreesmartelectronics.com. Smart Electronics, way to live a smart life.
The stage is set, the spotlights are on the contestants, and the mic, it's hot. It's the ZIZ Kitchen Superstar 2025, the island's biggest and most exciting sing-off competition. Coming to you live every Thursday at 8 p.m. on ZIZ Television and across all ZIZ social media platforms. Each week, the performances gets bigger, the voices get stronger, and the excitement reaches new heights. Follow the drama, the emotions, the music as our stars chase the crown of Kitchen Superstar and avoid elimination. Tune in every Thursday at 8 p.m. on ZIZ Television and ZIZ social media platforms and cheer on your favorite contestants. ZIZ Kitchen Superstar 2025, the journey to stardom.
And welcome back everyone to this evening's HealthWise. So we are back here again for another episode and part 2 of priorities of health in St. Kitts and Nevis. Last week we spoke about some of the determinants of health, some of the issues that we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis, such as a higher incidence rate in diabetes, cancer, hypertension, some of these NCDs, and some of the reasons why we are seeing this turn of events. And although it was a little bit daunting, we did give some tips in terms of what you can do as an individual to ensure that you maintain a good quality of life, good quality health, to kind of reduce the burden of disease on our healthcare system and to maintain your own health. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into things like that. And we want to touch firstly on mental health and the status of that within our federation. So I'm going to ask my colleagues here, what is their experience as it relates to seeing any patients with any sort of mental issues or disorders?
Which one of us you want to?
Well, Dr. Lescott, let's go with you first.
I had to be the one to ask, right? Okay, so when it comes to mental health, I would say that it's a work in progress for the most part. I think literally right now, what I'm seeing as a trend, what's really affecting a lot of mental health issues with persons is drug abuse, actually.
Yeah.
Drug abuse and alcohol abuse is a big one. I feel like sometimes we need to be more wise. You know, there's a saying that goes, you have to pick your poison.
Right.
Like, you can't have all of the poisons. Like, you pick one. you just can't use it all. Like, I know of persons who, they drink, they smoke, and they do other things. Like, you have to consider and bear in mind that you're only human and you're overworking your organs of eliminations, like your kidneys, your liver, when it comes to the drinking. And what's the street drug, Molly? I can't remember the scientific is MDMA. This is a scientific name for Molly. The original street name for it would have been ecstasy, and from what I know, it actually speeds up your heart rate, it makes you dehydrated, and in some cases, some persons will stroke out because the heart rate speeds up so much. Some people, they end up dying, they clock out.
I mean, it is a drug, and it's expected to have a chemical reaction on the body. I also noticed that persons, they come in, they want the high, and then can't handle the high. And a lot of things that what we notice is that persons think that just because this person had this experience, they're gonna have the exact same experience. And I'm like, everybody's body is different. Everybody has different thresholds.
I agree.
But not only do we see mental illness as a cause of, caused by drug abuse, but we also have mental illness that comes about, like schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, and these things. And I think that here in St. Kitts and Nevis, it's not something that we have really shed light on. It's not something that we've really looked in depth in. To us as a federation, it might seem something that's new and not something that's fully explored. And yes, we can rely on data from overseas. We understand what the concept of those illnesses, and we can treat it accordingly. But what we should really find out is what are the statistics for St. Kitts and Nevis, right? And a lot of times we have persons in the population who are affected by these things, and in our colloquial terms, we say,
they're crazy.
That's obvious. Somebody put something on them. Hearing voices and all those things. And it's actually, these things can actually be treated, you know?
Yes.
It's not just you being crazy. There's
it's a
an
neurological manifestation taking place.
We talk about all these things, but one of the things we also need to look at is depression, right?
Yeah, depression is a huge one.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just a matter of being sad,
Correct.
It's way more than that. And I think that's something we should definitely talk about on another episode since it's so broad. But just to shed a little light on it, depression has so many faces. And people expect that once you're depressed, you just look sad, you're not eating. But some of the happiest looking people around are
depressed.
Are constantly fighting thoughts of suicide, are constantly fighting themselves every day to get up and act normal. And they put on a face. And we want to look at things like bullying and stuff like that. We look at the persons who are victims of bullying, and we think that, you're going to push this person to depression and all that stuff. They're sad. But sometimes, have you ever wondered why the bullies bully? I don't think people have really thought about it from that angle. But a lot of
hurting people hurt people. I'm sorry to sound like, what you call that? It sounds
really
corny.
Yeah. So a lot of the times when persons bully others or inflict pain on others, because possibly they themselves
They're going through something. Yes, definitely.
And it's just like a toxic cycle.
It's just a toxic cycle, and you don't know what's going on in their personal lives. Maybe they themselves are being abused, and this is just a way of, asking for help and trying to cope with what's happening to them. If I can make somebody else feel worse than me, I will feel better about myself.
Correct.
So I think that mental health and mental issues, like it's so broad, but we really need to take time to like break it down and look at our population to see where we can fix these chinks and how we can, reinforce the mental health of, Sinkers and
Yeah, and as you was mentioning, in terms of I think maybe we could use the term functional depression.
Yes.
I was looking at this YouTube video with a South African entrepreneur, and he was mentioning that he lost his best friend at age 19. They were friends for about 5 years. And this friend was like the life of the party. Always a person to call and check on how he's doing, etc. And then one day he just committed suicide out of the blue. And it's like, but what would be the root cause of something like that, and such a drastic change, right? And so really and truly, we never know what's going on in somebody's head. Even though you feel like you know somebody so well, they could be masking so many different things that they're totally different life.
But one thing that some persons don't understand is when it comes to depression, you can kind of describe depression as your anger, extreme anger being turned towards the self. It's not even just about resentment. Most times the root causes of a lot of depressive states in people is anger, actually. I don't think a lot of persons know that. It's anger, it's built up and pent up anger, unexpressed rage. And then eventually your mind turns on itself.
Wow.
That's what happens sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, like, where is the anger stemming from? What's the cause of that?
I think it could be from, different roles in society that we have to take part in.
Definitely.
You have to go to work.
The cost of living is a huge one.
Yeah.
Bills,
So, for example,
debt.
for males especially, where they feel the sense of, I have to protect, I have to provide, I have to work, and they're not getting what they need, they're not getting what they want in their jobs, or they're not getting the salary that they need. If they're a construction worker, the foreman is constantly on their case, they constantly feel attacked, and then when they go home, they might have problems in their
homes, with their spouses. Yeah, because men are conventionally have a higher rate of suicide than women.
Men don't talk. Men are naturally not as I hate to sound like I'm having a gender bias, but this is what the books say. Statistically speaking, men tend not to express as much as women. Men tend to keep, especially the more serious emotions, to themselves. They won't necessarily tell you, well, I'm really angry at myself right now because I don't have enough money, or I can't pay this bill, or I can't help a loved one. They won't tell you.
I think it's because of the expectation society puts on them. Because men are thought to be the providers, and then once they feel like they can't provide,
they get down on themselves.
They get down on themselves, but we also get down on them. And society as a whole get down on them. You're not a man if you can't. You understand?
So we have to do better.
Yes, we should.
And as women, we have to support our men.
Exactly. Right. But then women, on the other hand, we can always turn to somebody, and it's okay if we cry.
It's okay for us to cry. It's not necessarily okay sometimes for men to cry. That's
but then we have this movement now, like, real men cry, right? But then even though they cry, they'll be like,
what's going to happen
after? Break up with you, and you cry about it, and it's like, wow, look at you.
So what? No.
And then everybody saw you crying, and then they use that against you.
Yeah.
So why would I allow myself to be vulnerable?
And then it's going to be used against you.
It's going to be the result.
Yeah. And then it's just a toxic cycle, and then we start manifesting different things, and then if the adults in society or the parents in society have that, it's going to affect the children, and it produces another cycle. It just goes on and on and on.
It's crazy.
Cycle. So definitely something we need to
work on. Yeah, and perhaps, like you mentioned, even if it's not just depression alone, we would have another episode about just mental health
on a whole.
On a whole, yeah, I think that's needed. The conversation needs to be had about that and a lot of the nuances.
We need to discuss better coping mechanisms. Like we can't be turning to substance abuse as soon as something goes wrong in our life. Though we can't be drowning ourselves in substances, because I think that's one of the issues. We have a high cost of living. There's a lot of persons that are not meeting their bills, so to speak, their standard quota at the end of the month, and they tend to become frustrated and depressed over that over time. I mean, I can't tell anybody how to feel. I take things on a much different scale. I guess me studying psychology, I've learned how to cope. Over the years, I've developed many different coping mechanisms, so I might be a bit different from a lot of other people, but it's something we need to learn. We need to teach people better coping mechanisms.
And at the same time, on your topic, I think that it's expected in society. You know, after a Friday going for a drink. And a person might be saying that they're chronic alcoholics.
I mean, the social drinking isn't a problem. I know of persons who drink every day.
Yeah,
and that's another topic.
Yeah, that's another topic, right?
They're functioning alcoholics and functioning drug people.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that even though we accept social drinking and one-off, and so sometimes that one buddy who, man, I got the first round, I got the second round, he might be fighting something.
Yeah, no, he dragging you to fight with him.
Right? It's just a mask. And we need to be able to see what are these signs of crying out for help, you know? Because a lot of people won't say, hey, I need help. They will show you in their actions and all that stuff.
I agree.
So we're gonna take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see and the climate's changing.
But hope is remaining.
And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice, together we stand. Take care, the world where we live. Permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para guardar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are one climate, one Caribbean. One climate, one Caribbean.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are speaking here on HealthWise this evening about health priorities in St. Kitts and Nevis. We were just speaking about some mental health, or just trying to sensitize the public about some mental health issues such as depression particularly. And now we want to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to speak about some infectious diseases that we are seeing on the rise, or even maybe if certain things would have plateaued on the graphs and things like that. So in reference to STIs and STDs, you know, sometimes that's a little taboo topic, but it's still very much important. We still have to have good sexual health. And so even if all of the health professionals come and say, make sure you stay wise and condomize, sometimes everybody don't do that, right? Are we really doing that? So let's speak a little bit more about that, ladies.
Okay, so I had a patient one time, and she came in for a particular infection. And during the conversation, she was like, but hey, it only happened once, you know. I always use condom, but it's one time. And I was like, you hear what you said? One time. It was just once, and it only needs to happen once.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is that we have a rise of a lot of sexual transmitted diseases, and we mostly see it in high schoolers, persons in their early 20s and 30s and beyond, but the concentration of it is in high schoolers. And not that we've done a census or anything like that, but they come with their parents or something like that, and they say, I never do nothing. And the parents, the moms with them is like, my daughter would never. But when I'm looking in, I'm like,
and the labs say differently.
According to your labs, according to your physical examination, it says that you have, right? And I think that a lot of the times we need to be realistic with ourselves, be realistic with our kids, and realize that yes, they are transitioning into adulthood. They're going to experience hormonal changes. They're going to have interest in the opposite sex as well as sexual intercourse and all those things. And even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, we need to keep at the back of the minds like they just might go behind my back and do what it is they want to do. They're going to want to experiment and they're going to hide it from me.
Yeah.
Right? Because our society, whether we like it or not,
it's a highly sexualized society.
Exactly. I was looking for the nice words to say.
No, it's highly sexualized. I think we push a lot of sex. It's right in front of the children's faces from a very early age.
Yes.
I find we don't censor a lot of our conversations anymore. We just say whatever in front of the children.
No filter at
And I feel like our children are much more sexually involved, more sexually mature than we give them credit for sometimes.
So with that mindset and with our children, like things don't surprise them anymore, right? I remember once upon a time you couldn't say the word penis. That was like a bad word. You had to whisper it and cover your mouth, right? And now you have primary schoolers talking to you like they're grown men and women, and I'm shocked with the knowledge they have. I'm like,
and the ease at which they feel comfortable saying things around adults.
Yeah.
It's one thing, okay, let's be real. Even when we were in maybe 4th, 5th form and then maybe CFBC, you have your conversations with your friends. But when you see maybe one of the teachers or an adult coming around the corner, you make sure that you censor yourself immediately.
You're quiet down, you're close
but
up.
not these kids anymore.
Exactly. And because they're so open and confident with that thing, they have no issue with trying it out. And they will tell you positions, what they like, what they this. And I'm like,
really? Who these children you just be talking to?
Oh, you might be surprised. And then with that now, we're seeing a rise in it because even though they know it, they don't practice it. Right? And then we have, unfortunately, we have predators in our society who take advantage of these young girls, or we might call them fast or whatever the case may be, but they're actually being groomed, men as well, young boys as well, are being groomed and they're having these things. And then they don't get checked out until it's too late. Correct. So now we're going to see things like yeast infections that go way past. It's like, how long have you had this? You didn't notice this was like that before? Or they have gonorrhea, or they have chlamydia. And you're like, but you're so young, you know? And these things can lead to infertility, can lead to cervical cancer, and all these things. And what are we doing for it? And yes, we promote sexual education and all those things, but knowing is not enough because they know.
I could remember when I was in 5th form, like the school leavers, I don't know whose idea was it to, we had like a lecture in the hall. I could remember at BHS, and Miss Cable at the time was the principal, and they had us all in the big hall that we have assembly, and we had this projector with all of the different STDs and STIs and everything.
Pictures.
I was so mortified. I was scared straight. I maybe we need to have something like this again, like all of the things that could possibly go wrong, all of the worst case scenarios. They had pictures, they had videos. I was like, am I old enough to see this? Who gave these people permission to scare me like this? But I feel like that was really, really a good
wake-up call for you?
A wake-up call. It was a good strategy to keep me on the straight and narrow.
Yes.
It was a very, very straight and very narrow street.
And then persons only think about HIV and AIDS, right?
There's so much other stuff.
And they think that just because they do a HIV, AIDS, and it's negative, oh, then I can
I'm
do what
good.
I want.
I can
You
do
have
whatever.
syphilis, you have herpes, hepatitis, all these things. And I'm like, you are exposing yourself to all these things, you know? And then a lot of times they're only concerned about getting pregnant. And I'm like, you have way worse things to be worried about other than pregnancy and HIV. You know?
And on that topic, no, because it's like, okay, at the end of the day, you can't police people's genitalia, right?
True, you really can't.
And it's like, okay, from a public health point of view, we try to educate and sensitize. We try to give condoms and these kind of things. You do as much as you can, but the onus now is on any consenting individual, and I have to highlight that term, consenting.
Yes.
And I would even push it further and say, emotionally, physically, just all the lees,
Yes.
mature enough to involve yourself in sexual activity. You know, at the end of the day, it's their choice if they're gonna not be wise and condomize or just, you know, free
Be
for all.
promiscuous and all those
You know what I
things.
mean? Because every action is going to have an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes.
It's going to have a consequence. And no, because perhaps from like a preventative measure, some parents make their girls take birth control from a very young age.
Yeah.
And we don't ever, I can't say I've ever seen a conversation where we really dive into the implications of birth control and the longevity of reproductive health,
Oh
which
my
brings me
goodness.
into
Oh my goodness.
the incidence of cancer, hormonal receptor cancers like breast cancer, stuff like that. Some studies would suggest you take birth control, then it will control cervical cancer, ovarian cancer. We're gonna get into that, but then what about endometriosis and PCOS and all these things? So let's take a quick commercial break, and we're gonna come right back and talk on exactly that. Stick and stay. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Another day in the books. Well, hello there. Ooh, she pretty from head to toe, and are you ready to go? Wait there. Whew. Can't afford to slip up. Not even in my dreams.
Welcome back, everyone, to our episode here on HealthWise, where we're talking about the health priorities in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we were just elaborating on some of the nuances that we see within sexual health, specifically those persons of a younger age range, like teenagers, early 20s, and some of the things that they may want to do to make sure that they are safe. And we also spoke about the use of hormonal birth control with our ladies. A lot of the times, I guess as a preventative measure, parents would allow or enforce that their girls take the birth control pill, maybe the patch, the injection, maybe as far as an IUD, because they know that their child is sexually active and they want to prevent pregnancy. But we have to really take a long and hard thought about the effects, the long-term effects of what continuous birth control, the lack of having a menstrual period as we would know it, right? It is I can't stress how extremely important it is for every woman to know what their specific cycle is, to have a baseline, to know what is normal for you, because typically a period would last between 21 to 28 days. The cycle, depending on, certain things. Everybody's a little different, but just on average between that range. But if you're not going to be having a menstrual cycle, you're not going to know what's wrong with you. So some of these reproductive issues, specifically like maybe within your early 20s, early 30s.
Things like PCOS, endometriosis, that can affect the cycle.
Correct.
Or persons who naturally have an irregular cycle.
And you won't know. And then maybe you're definitely at childbearing age, you want to get pregnant, and then you're trying to figure out, why am I having all these miscarriages? Right. So I'll let the physicians elaborate a little bit more on some of the reproductive issues that we may be seeing in St. Kitts and Nevis.
It has always been my thinking that if you don't need it, don't use it, right? And why would you treat or fix something that isn't broken? Now, I understand why contraceptives were made in the first place to, avoid or prevent unwanted pregnancies. But in children who are maturing, whose body is developing, you know, you need to allow your body the time to develop into what it's supposed to be at its final stage in adulthood. And even in adulthood, our bodies are consistently changing due to external factors, internal factors. Now, when you introduce things like hormone therapy into the body for, you know, preventative measures of pregnancy, what you're doing now is that you're forcing your body to behave in a way that it's not common, it's not supposed to, in a sense. I'm not sure if I'm explaining.
I understand where
that
you're
right.
coming from. Like, for instance, the those organs that are responsible for the regulatory hormonal changes and whatnot, I think those birth controls would definitely hamper with that. Like, it would interrupt the natural flow of how your hormonal regulatory system is supposed to develop.
Yeah, for example, if you take a Plan B, I don't know if anybody has ever taken a Plan B, right? But you notice that your period or your menstruation cycle, it gets thrown off because you force yourself to menstruate at the time to either get rid of or to prevent
The fetus from developing.
to prevent
Pregnancy.
fertilization, pregnancy, or implantation. And that's what it does. Now, persons who abuse it, because you're not supposed to take Plan B pills like Tic Tacs. And some persons, they were like, oh, I had unprotected sex today, I'm going to take a Plan B tomorrow. And then next week,
the same thing.
you do the same thing. And then you're taking 4, 5, 6 Plan B pills in a month. And I'm like, that's crazy. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Right? And it's because of the lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And persons don't think past the no. They think, I take this and I'm safe, but what about the long-term effects? You're opening up yourself to possible cancers, to DVT, deep vein thrombosis. You know, we have a rise on, studies have shown that certain contraceptives contribute to blood clots.
Yeah.
Right? So why would you willingly expose yourself to that?
I don't think people realize how serious a blood clot is. I think they hear the term blood clot and they think it's something very surface, but it's actually very, very serious.
It's very life-threatening.
Yes.
It can take your life in a matter of seconds. And the thing is that most of the times it doesn't give a warning sign.
Signs, correct.
Right? It's very silent. And these are things, like, if you don't need it, don't do it. And it is my opinion that teenagers should not be on those things unless it is necessary for their health. You understand? You have to be diagnosed by a physician that says, okay, because of this condition, we recommend you using this because, you know, there's a reason for it, not because I don't want my child to get pregnant. And then on that topic alone, in my opinion, I think that parents need to be parents instead of being their child's friend.
Oh,
right?
there's this term that we use right now. It's called gentle parenting, soft parenting.
Right, and I think that's an issue. Reason being because it's great to have an open communication with your child, your children, but at the same time, there needs to be a boundary. There needs to be a level of respect where, hi, as your mom, I'm telling you that this is what it should be, and you should respect that.
Personally, I was wondering, where was this gentle parenting when I was growing up?
It was
This is a rip-off. Like, my mother had no idea of what was gentle, okay?
Right? And, like, I remember once upon a time, like, talking about boys was taboo. The only B you're supposed to be talking about is your books.
Exactly.
Ain't nothing more than that but your books, right? And I remember I was 11 or 12 years old, and I used to play with boys a lot. I was a little tomboy growing up, and the second I hit started having periods and stuff like that, and I was like, you're not going outside to play with the boys. I was like, why are you playing football? And she was like, no, you're not playing with boys. Now, communication could have been better. That could have been a great time for education.
Teachable moment.
Right?
Yeah.
But they ain't all the time. They ain't thinking about all they thinking about boys and girls can't mix.
That's what I'm saying. There's no gentle
Separate.
parenting. Like, I think it's a rip-off. I'm applying for gentle parenting now in my adult years.
But just to stress a little bit more from the medical and scientific side, let's say, for instance, the correlation between birth control, hormonal birth control, and, let's say, breast cancer. Now, we know we have different subtypes of breast cancer. There's luminal A, luminal B, triple negative, and next week I'll be elaborating on that with Dr. Lescott. But when it comes to the hormone receptor type breast cancers, if you are going to have a hormone-based drug that you are taking every single day, maybe you skip the sugar pills because you just want to fast track. You don't want to have a period, right? So you skip the sugar pills or you just go straight into the new set. If you're doing that for 15, 20 years, what do you think is going to be the implication of not just your reproductive health, but the risk that you're exposing, the increased risk? Because everything can happen in technical terms, but it's a matter of how risky it is based on a lot of extenuating circumstances. But if you are going to directly expose yourself to the things, so this is the connection I'm trying to make for the audience. We have the hormonal pill, birth control pill, that can either be progesterone alone, that's a type of female hormone, or the combined, which is estrogen and progesterone. And these are receptors, or you can think of it like a key and a lock. So on a cancer cell, a breast cancer cell, you would have the lock. And then this is the estrogen, which is a part of the birth control pill that is coming in to that lock to lock it and then cause the cancer cell to grow. So you are literally feeding, in a case like that, in that specific subtype, you're literally feeding the
cancer cells.
And I don't know if the physicians and the doctors and the scientists and all of these people in health and science community really explain what we are doing. That's why we're here again, to really elaborate on those things. But that's literally just one instance or circumstance in which, you know, you literally causing detriment to your own self, and in a lot of cases unknowingly. Right? And again, we'll elaborate further on different things, but just to show how, not because you're taking this for prevention of pregnancy, there could be, rather, have to use terms very technically in this field, right? There could be other indirect, and at a point in time, that could be a very direct cause of why you would be experiencing a malignant tumor, right? And so we really have to take account of it and know that our body is a functioning unit. Like, things don't happen in silos. Everything is connected some way, shape, or form. And so we really need to look at the overall health of ourselves and the things that we're putting into our bodies, and ask questions. As young women, ask questions to your doctors. Doc, what is this gonna do to me in
the long run?
That's the thing. I realize that, you know, sometimes you write a prescription and tell the patient, here, take this for 3 days and blah, 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 and that's it. And I'm like, okay now. And
nobody asks
asks, so what are the possible side effects? What should I expect to happen? When should I expect to see an improvement?
But I know you guys are great physicians, so you're going to say it regardless.
You say those things, but a lot of the times you ask patients, what do you understand? Do you understand what I said? Yes, doctor. Tell me what I said. Well, you said something about, and he's like, you just
crickets.
Talk. You just talk to a blank wall. There's nothing coming back. And he's like, okay, if you don't understand, don't say yes, you understand. You know, tell me.
I think persons get too busy with life and then they neglect their own self. I've seen it in the hospital. They come, and when the treatment is over, they're in a rush to leave. So what you're saying goes in one ear and out the next. Unless there's some sort of issue when they go home, then you will hear from them again. But sometimes I don't think they care what anybody is saying to them.
And a lot of times people like, all these pills, they're taking a pills, they're going bush doctor. And I'm like, but you're doing the same thing. You went to the bush doctor.
They say this?
No, I've had patients who like, they don't take medication, and my response to them is, so
then
why are
come
you
to the
here?
hospital?
Like, I mean, I give medication here, and if you don't take tablets, you don't take injections. You want me to go outside and pick a bush?
But you know, like, that was one concern overseas. Like, they were concerned that some persons, they would come to get the pharmaceutical medication, and then they would take it in tandem with the traditional herbal medication, and sometimes I don't think those two are supposed to mix.
No, because they're all drugs and they're all going to interact with each other.
And then the herbal one is not measured. There is not a measured dosage, and there's not a measured side effect. So I was wondering, and I said this yesterday in a presentation that I had with some persons, it's an issue overseas with persons who have a strong traditional medicine background culture, where you would prescribe, say for instance, medication for a very serious illness like cancer. People figure, oh, it's cancer, so they're gonna try every herbal remedy there is. And I've heard some pretty intense mixes of herbal tinctures. So it's a very strong, although natural, but very strong and concentrated herbal mix of tea. And then they're going to take a cancer medication with it. So I suspect the kidneys are being overworked.
Right.
You suspect? The kidneys are fighting for their life. Right? And
that was an issue. That's actually a topic of study. That's something that needs to be researched.
Definitely. And I don't think it's an issue just overseas. It's here. I've had patients who be like, oh, I just drink my bush. I'm like, do you take any medication? No, I just drink my bush. And I'm like, why do you drink your bush? Because you're using the bush as a medication. That's what it is. It's a medication. So if you're going to drink guava tea leaves, right, guava leaves tea for diarrhea, which parts of the leaf are you drinking? You're drinking the young ones, the young leaf that just come out, or the leaf down the tree?
I personally think when we're accepting patients, we're supposed to, right now, consider the herbal, and sometimes when we're doing the history taking, we ask, are you taking any medication? I think we need to now further probe, are you taking any herbal supplements, any natural teas? Because I realize that persons have, like I said, they've been taking herbal remedies and they mix it quite strong, and then they still take the pharmaceuticals, and I'm like, this is a disaster.
Yeah, and then a lot of the times they think that it is better than, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I'm just saying that
it's not supposed to, it's supposed to be, you're supposed to know your dosing, you're supposed to know what you're taking, especially if you're going to be taking pharmaceuticals, because then you don't know how it's going to interact
with each other.
And that's the scary part.
Docs, we have to take a short commercial break, and this part was getting real exciting for you, but we'll be back.
It's scary.
Smart Electronics, your one-stop shop for all your electronic needs. Unlock cell phones, tablets, laptop computers, Bluetooth speakers, TVs, mobile accessories, memory cards, USB drives. We carry all major brands. Now you don't have to go anywhere anymore. Everything's available under one roof. Smart Electronics at Port Sante opposite the food court. Telephone 466-4271. Visit our website at dutyfreesmartelectronics.com. Smart Electronics, way to live a smart life.
Sidekicks and Nevis. The stage is set, the lights are on, and the voices are ready. ZIZ Competition Superstar 2025 kicks off October 9th. Bigger, bolder, and more electrifying than ever. Meet your superstar hopefuls. Iquantra Bradley, Sheslin Ward, Bidnet Richardson, Denicia Henry, Nikita Sage, Romesia Prentice, Ashari Rensford, Juanita Johnson, Melissa Bell, and Norris Henderson. 10 contestants, one stage, one dream. Catch it all October 9th, live on ZIZ Radio, TV, and social media. Who will be the next ZIZ Competition Superstar?
Our world is filled with rhythm. Rhythm that's unapologetic, infectious, timeless. Rhythm is commitment in action. It's how we show up for each other with unrelenting support that goes the distance. Rhythm lives in the tiny beats of our most intimate moments and the seismic roars of our biggest achievements. Rhythm is resilience in motion. So even when things go out of sync, we do what it takes to bring the rhythm back. At Flow, we understand your rhythm because we live it. That's why we're dedicated to building a network as resilient as you, with a team of familiar faces working every day to keep you on beat. You're at the heart of everything we do, and our commitment is to keep your rhythm flowing, no matter what.
All right, welcome back everyone. If you're just joining us, I want to say make sure next week you're here 8:30 sharp. But so far we've been talking about the health priorities in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we've had a very riveting discussion so far. We just came off of speaking about some of the dosing, or not so much of dosing, with natural products versus pharmaceuticals, and persons who have the mixture of those things at the same time, which is not advised by our medical practitioners here. So just to wrap up a little bit on what you guys were mentioning, it is not a good idea to have our traditional herbal or natural products in tandem with pharmaceuticals. First of all, because with the natural products, you probably might not know what the dosing is, right? And certain concentrations, and you were elaborating on young shoot versus a more mature one, which would have
different parts of the plants, or what you use would have different ingredients, different properties, and different concentrations of these properties. And even the persons like to use neem, bush, and merengue. Do you know how much of the product, how much of the leaves would have the amount of ingredients that you need to do its job that you want it to do? You don't, right? So some people drink high concentration, some people drink it very diluted, and they go based on the flavor. Oh, it's a bit of saying drinking that. They have to water it down. But what are you doing exactly? You know, most persons only have very, very superficial knowledge of the plants and the herbal medicine, and they bet their lives on that, because that's what you're doing. You're betting your life on the herbal medication that you really don't know anything about.
But they have more faith in the herbal medicine. For some reason, pharmaceuticals have gotten a really bad name over the years, and I feel like the general public has lost faith in medicine on a whole, so persons have taken matters into their own hands and created an even bigger issue than there was.
But what of the people who would say, okay, well, my grandmother and great-grandmother who lived to 90 and maybe even 100 were the ones that were taking these tinctures and oils, and they had a great quality of life. They were strong. They didn't fall over like this when they were 80 years old, you know. So what were they doing that we are not?
Out in the ground, picking potatoes in the sun, being more active.
They were active.
We live a more sedentary lifestyle these days than they would have had. They would have been up by 5 o'clock and outside milking animals and picking food. Like, I've heard my mother say some stuff that she's been doing even before it was time for her to get ready for school. She's up doing this. I would be flatlined. I can't do all of that before school.
And that's the thing we're not taking into consideration. They only focus on one aspect of the ancestors' lives, and not everything. First of all,
and their diet was different too. They didn't intake as much sugar as us.
The sugar intake was completely different. The processed foods with the 1,000,001 chemicals for preservatives, they weren't eating that. They did a lot of physical activity, a lot of back-breaking hard work. Right? They slept when they were supposed to sleep. They woke up when they were supposed to wake up. Just the environment, as well as if you're looking at the environment.
And I don't think they were taking as many contraceptives as us. If you notice, they had more children.
They had 16 and 20 children.
But not only that, let's think about it holistically, right? We're talking about lifestyle and all those things, but what about the environment? The amount of pollution that we have. Right? We have more cars in St. Kitts than we had 10, 20 years ago, right? We have a lot of air pollution, water pollution.
I don't think asthma was a thing with them either. I never knew a lot of
I mean, I haven't been on it that long, so I wouldn't know.
No, I listened to a lot of the older folks. If asthma was a thing, I think we would have probably had a lot more deaths back then, because the amount of asthma cases that we have now in comparison to when my mother would have been coming up, I think
I don't think we can really like measure that because at the time we didn't have that much technology. And we
So you
didn't have
think
that much-
persons probably died from asthma and they didn't know?
It was misdiagnosed. They just didn't know, right? But overall, I think that at the time they were living in a healthier environment compared to what we're living now. And I think that a lot of the things that we're being exposed to now, like radiation and all these things and all these extra technologies that we have that does have an effect on our bodies, they didn't have that. They weren't exposed to that. They were more out in nature, more reliant on natural stuff, natural products, and that affected their bodies differently to us. So we can't just do what they were doing. The medication with the bush and say, oh, it worked for them, so it's supposed to work.
But I don't even think they would have had pharmaceuticals. I think they were using the herbal medications because they probably necessarily couldn't sometimes afford to go to a doctor.
And I think that is true, but at the same time, we have to bear in mind that they had a lot of trial and error. So they figured, okay, this is the correct amount that will work for me or for work for my family in this situation. They did a lot of, guinea pig training, right? And a lot of people suffered for it. And then they were able to gain knowledge from that, But what confuses me is the fact that people have a bias against pharmaceuticals, and then they run towards herbal medication, but not realizing that most of the pharmaceuticals come from the same it comes from the exact same thing. The only difference is that, well, not the only difference, but the main difference is that they tend to work faster. And they tend to either leave the body longer or stay longer
But
in the body.
we also have to integrate the fact that some of these pharmaceuticals are synthetic versions.
Yes, and they are.
That may be acting differently on the body to what the actual active ingredient as an extract coming from wherever it's coming from, right? So it's always about knowledge.
Knowledge, right?
Right?
Educate
and being
yourself.
open. And knowing what works for you, what is your benchmark, what's your baseline, and being able to decipher along with a professional, a medical professional.
So don't go on Google and just type it in and the first thing that pop up, that is fact, right? I think that persons should be willing and able to have open, honest conversations with their private practitioners, with the doctors. And I believe that if a doctor don't know, there's no harm in saying, hey, I don't know, I need to research this.
Correct.
I need to look up this. I need to consult
I'm happy that you said that because I will stick up in here and tell you that there are some doctors that don't say that and purport themselves to know everything and then misdiagnose you and then give you the wrong treatment. That has happened, and I'm talking from personal experience because there is, and we didn't mention about this sort of cultural difference before, but when you were talking about some people being afraid to are too busy, their lifestyle is too busy, I think also one of the reasons why persons don't do that, it's because they have this fear of the God complex. And so in our culture, it's like whatever the doctor says, that's it. I am not going to refute, I'm not going to rebut, I'm not going to question.
Not to their faces, but they do go home and question sometimes behind our backs.
Yes, that's what I mean, not to your face. Because whatever fear is there, it's just like, okay, well, this is the doctor, so I'm not supposed to question. I'm not, but that is not the case.
That is very wrong because as a doctor, I can't tell you if you're feeling pain or not. You can only tell me, hey, doctor, I have a pain here. I've been feeling it for such and such a time. And what do you think? Because you're asking me for my knowledge because this is what I studied. However, I cannot tell you
how to feel
about something. And if you think that, okay, I understand what this doctor is saying, but I would like to have a second opinion.
Or more clarity.
And it's always good to say, hey, doctor, I don't really understand. Or doctor, how you come up with this diagnosis? Could you explain that disease to me? Let me understand. And then while the doctor, if they're nice enough, give that explanation, they'll be like, you know what? I've been experiencing this for you. I've been experiencing that for you. This you feel like this. And then I think that would create more of confidence, a better rapport between the patient and the doctor, because a lot of medicine is highly dependent on trust between the patient and the doctor.
Hey, as you said that, let's take up in there, because we were wondering how come men don't like going to the physician, and maybe it's a lack of trust.
It could be trust, and I think it comes, in my opinion, I think it comes back to the fact that men tend to be all powerful and nothing's ever wrong with them.
And they don't want to be vulnerable.
They don't want to be. They have a fear of being vulnerable because, for example, when they ask somebody, when last you get a prostate check?
Who?
That's the fastest way. I think, in my opinion, that's the fastest way to piss off any man, to get any man upset.
Caribbean
in
man.
the Caribbean, you say, hey, when last again, mom, ain't nobody doing that to me. Nobody touching me like that. And I'm like, it's not like that, you know? And they just don't want to hear it. And so to approach certain topics to them, you know, it's difficult.
Or maybe they don't want anyone to know that they're afraid of needles, and then when they actually tend to
Yeah.
get an injection, they cry.
Right?
Yeah, they're very vulnerable. They don't want anybody laughing at them, and that's just a thing for them, you know. So sometimes you have to pull them in a room and let me explain something to you. It's not like that. It's like this, and they go walking out like, yeah, it's happening, you know. Very macho, but
Yeah.
on the inside, when you was with them, they were like, but Doc, afraid of nobody. And it's like, and that's okay. It's okay, because we are everybody's secret. I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to say it like that.
I know what you were going to say.
We're supposed to be the ones that the population can confide in
You're
and be confident
yeah.
that, you know, it's not going to go anywhere but here. Like, I take this to my grave, you know? I treat, and we don't just treat diseases, we treat persons, we treat
People,
community,
yes.
we treat society. Medicine is very holistic. It's social, it's biological, it's economical, psychological. Yeah, it's everything, you know. And as physicians, we have to take our role seriously. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the paycheck. I think that doctors should really have a love and a passion for medicine,
people.
for people, because it's one of the most unthankful jobs you will ever come across. You know, you help somebody, and then these are the same people turn around and spit on you. You just have to be like, you know, that's them, that's on them, and you just have to move on. You can't let that experience affect how you treat other people. But at the same time, we're humans, so it will affect how we treat other people. There's
Yeah.
only so much anybody can take, you know?
But in terms of, we have to wrap up now, but I think some of the quick tips and solutions that we could mention would be more preventative measures.
Not just that,
right?
when you come to the physician for an illness, if you've been diagnosed and you decide to stray away from whatever was being prescribed, let me not say stray away, you decided to add to what was prescribed, I would really, really urge you to speak with a physician first, because we need to understand what you're taking, so that when you come to a facility like the health center or JNF and we ask you, like, what medications are you taking, I think it's paramount now to ask not just what medications, what herbal supplements and what herbal teas are you taking. Do you take it in tandem with your regular medications? How much time? We need to ask those questions.
Yeah.
We really do.
So that's one of the ways we can prevent complications, prevent misdiagnoses, and prevent unforeseen accidents and stuff like that. I think another thing that we should do for prevent, like, I've been always saying this, education is so important, knowledge is so important, right? And I think that a lot of persons have the knowledge, but they don't practice it.
Yeah.
Right? And what can we do to enforce the practice of it? We can't really control that, because we're not omnipotent. I can't force you to do the right thing. You understand?
But you know, and I think Monique wouldn't have a really good idea of this. When we were in Taiwan, and even just in Asia, Southeastern Asia in general, the governments would integrate movement and our infrastructure from movement.
For instance, like, it's cheaper to buy non-sweetened drinks than it is to buy it. There's a heavier tax on sodas. Especially American-based sodas that use the corn syrup and the fructose. There was a heavier taxation on those. Like, for instance, which is really expensive, like one Coke will cost like $3 and $4 US in comparison to a non-sweetened, locally made Taiwanese drink that would cost like $1 or 50 cents US. So the price difference made a difference for me. I chose healthier because healthier was cheaper.
That's a good idea. So like, try to make healthy food more affordable, because instead of leaving healthy food for rich people.
Correct.
Right? And so besides the knowledge and implementing like different policies and stuff like that to like promote a healthy lifestyle, I think that one of the things that Dr. Lescott says is get them straight with the videos. I remember looking at it and I'm like, I don't want that to ever be me.
Yes.
So, you know, I think we should bring these things back into the schools.
So why did they leave it? Gosh, that was such that was like chef's kiss. Like after those videos, I didn't even want to hear the word man.
Right? So I think those are some of the tips that we can definitely reinforce.
Yes. Well, thank you to our listening audience. I think this episode was really interesting, and we touched on a lot of topics that would highlight the priorities in the health within our federation. And I really do hope I'm putting the onus on all of our viewing and listening audience to ensure that they have good choices, make healthy choices, be consistent with those choices. And this is a sounding board for myself as well, because I also have to stay accountable to the words that has been disseminated here this evening. But we want to ensure that we all pitch in all of the possible tangible ways that we can, because the health of our nation is the wealth of our nation. So we thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us for the entire show. And we invite you to come on back next week, Monday, where we will be speaking about breast cancer for the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's the last Monday of the month, but we're going to end it off with a bang. We would like to thank our production crew here at ZIZ and my lovely co-host here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye.